Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, Shabbos. Na 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 moy oy oy. Emi yitzvah vavas Shabbos. Oy vay, oy, bemi yitzvah Shabbos. Oy vay, Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, Shabbos. Bemi yitzvah vavas Shabbos. Oy vay, oy, 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 oy. Na 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 na. Oy, 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 oy. Kaye yel yachlitzo.
Shalom, my dear friends. Shalom from Yerushalayim here on this very beautiful day here, the 29th day of the month of Iyar, the very last day of this very holy, precious month known as the month of Ziv, the month of radiation, the 25th of May of the year 2017. We are today on the eve of Rosh Chodesh, the very remarkable Rosh Chodesh of the month of Sivan, which falls tonight, Thursday night, and tomorrow, Friday. And this Rosh Chodesh is the anniversary of the day on which Israel arrived in the wilderness of Sinai at the time of the giving of the Torah, ready for the giving of the Torah. And they encamped before the mountain, Vayichan ha'am, the people encamped. The verb Vayichan, they encamped, is in the singular, indicating that we all must be united in our receiving of the Torah, each and every one of us in his and in her heart. And as we stand poised to enter this very special day today, the eve of Rosh Chodesh, 29th of Iyar, is a day for introspection, for repentance, Yom Kippur Katan, a small Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, whether one fasts or one does not fast. One should conduct a serious soul searching and introspection in order to advance into these very holy days of the receiving of the Torah, opening ourselves to receive lilmod ulelamed, lishmor vela'asot, lidmod to learn, ulelamed and to teach, lishmor to guard, vela'asot to accomplish, to do. And today we shall presently be entering into our studies of the book of Yov, Job, and later on into the new chapter of Masachet Shabbat, Tractate Shabbat. Just before we do, let me announce that with the help of God, following the birth of our new baby grandson last Sunday, we are hoping and praying that his entry into the covenant of Abraham, his Brit Milah, will take place on Sunday in the town of Bet Shemesh near to Jerusalem at an hour sufficiently early in the day, in the morning, to enable us to have the Brit, the circumcision, followed by the Sudat Mitzvah, the feast of the mitzvah, and to enable me, with the help of God, to get back safely to Yerushalayim on Sunday for classes on Sunday beginning at 1600 hours Israel time. And on Sunday, God willing, we shall have our Kollel classes and continue afterwards on Sunday evening with the weekly Shavuot Tov in preparation for the festival of Shavuot, which falls next Tuesday night, the 30th of May, and on Wednesday, 31st of May, and in diaspora on Thursday, the 1st of June, the festival of Shavuot. Therefore, after next Monday's class, there will not be classes the rest of the week owing to the festival, and with the help of God, we shall be resuming our classes on the Sunday after Shavuot, but this coming Sunday and Monday there will be classes. So with that, my dear friends, let us now turn to our studies today in the book of Eov, where we are now going into the Hebrew text of chapter 32. So let us just prepare things here so that everybody will be able to hear this class also on audio afterwards. Let me just get this set up. Please give me a moment to prepare the audio recording as well. And once that is in place, then I will get going with the class. So, yes, indeed, I think we're ready now to proceed with the audio recording as well. Shalom. Today, the 29th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 25th of May of the year 2017. And now we continue with our venture into the closing sections of the book of Job, following yesterday's introduction to the discourses of Elihu bar Barachel. We now come to study the very, very beautiful Hebrew text. And chapter 32 of Job is really the introduction to a series of discourses in which Elihu will answer both Job and his companions. But our chapter 32, is mainly in the way of an introduction to this, a kind of prelude to what he is to say, introducing through this, again, very elegant, eloquent and high-flown text, his theme and the very profound wisdom that lies in the words of Elihu bar Barachel. So with that, let us now turn to the Hebrew text of Job, chapter 32, Sefer Eov, Perek Lamed Bes, which begins with words of narrative on verse 1 of the Hebrew text, Vayishbesu shaloshis ha'anoshim ha'ile me'anois es Eov, ki hu tzadik be'enov. Vayishbesu, with the root Shabbat, Shevet, sitting, they sat there, they had nothing more to say. The Hebrew text here, the Hebrew word of Vayishbesu, has the note of cantillation, Vayifazer, which is a note that leaps upwards into the air. Vayishbesu shaloishes ha'anoshim ha'ele. There ceased these three men, the companions of Job, me'anois es Eov, from any more answering to Job. Ki hu tzadik, for he was righteous, be'enov, in his own eyes. They were not able to say any more to persuade him, to convince him to change his mind. And the break in the parashas here, between verse 1 of chapter 32 and verse 2, indicates the silence that reigned there in this place of their discourses with Job there in abject misery, writhing in his suffering, and the companions having nothing more to say to him. And after this long, long silence, there Elihu bar Barachel is raging. Verse 2, Vayichar af Elihu ben Barachel habuzi mimishpachas Rom be'Iyov choro apo al tzadko nafsho me'Elohim. Vayichar, and they're burned. Af, the anger, through the nostrils, the nose of Elihu is burning this anger. Vayichar af Elihu ben Barachel, and we have had all the drashot from the Talmud Yerushalmi between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah of who is this Elihu ben Barachel. Is it the spirit of Bil'am? Is it the spirit of Isaac, the patriarch whose anger is burning? Habuzi, from the people of Buz, Mishpachas Ram, from the family of the exalted one, Abraham. Be'Iyov choro apo, against Job did rage or burn his anger. Al tzidko nafsho me'Elohim, on account of his having justified his own soul more than God, as if to find God not just with him. In the first verse, the companions had ceased because Job had only sees himself as a tzaddik in his own eyes, but the complaint of Elihu is that he sees himself as more demanding of justice than God has given him. And continuing in verse 3, V'shloishes re'ov choro apo al asher lo matza'u ma'aneh vayarshi'u et Iyov. Uv'shloshes re'ov, and against the three companions, choro apo, did burn his wrath. Al asher, on account that lo matz'u ma'aneh, they did not find any answer. Vayarshi'u es Iyov. Literally, they turned Iyov into the Rasha. Yarshi'u is the hif'il form of the verb, a causative form. They made Job the Rasha, the wicked, the guilty one. And here we must look at our commentators to reveal what they say about what exactly Elihu means here. According to our sages, as brought by both Rashi and Metzudat David, the text does not really mean what it appears to be saying, that they were judging Job to be in the wrong. Says Rashi, this is one of the verses that the Sofrim, the scribes, corrected. They corrected the language of the original verse as it came into the world through Holy Spirit, because what it means is that Vayarshi'u, the companions, actually were condemning Hamakom, condemning God himself, Bishtikusam, through their very silence. And that is what they should have written, the scribes, but they didn't. Out of deference and honor for the Almighty, they changed the wording of the verse to put the name Job. Because through the companions of Job having nothing to answer Job in his complaint that God is not just, they're actually declaring, we give in, we have nothing to say to you. Then simply it appears that if there's nothing to answer you, there stands the debate. So the same idea is reflected in the commentary of Metzudat David on the same verse, Vayarshi'u et Iyov, Hu Tikun Sofrim. This is a repair, a correction of the scribes. V'hu kinui el amokim. The word Job here is a kinui, that is an alternative way of addressing of referring to God. In other words, they wanted to take the reproof off the Almighty, so they put it in the name of Job, as it were. And what it wants to say is that because they did not find an answer to Job's complaints, they were thereby opposing and condemning the divine judgment that had been worked against him. And then, following this remark, which is grounded in the same tradition as Rashi has brought down, Metzudat David also interprets the verse to say in the way that it is patently written in our text. That is to say, if we wish to read this verse without the tikkun sofrim, without the repair of the scribes, then what it's saying is that since they have not found an adequate response to Job, they will cause Job to get even worse. Vayarshi'u, they are going to make Job get rasha, become even more evil, because he will think that his companions in not answering him have now actually agreed with him. So the anger of Eliphaz at both Job and his companions, he's going to elaborate in his own words as we go forward. He's going to answer both Job and answer the companions and state in detail what it is that he's answering. He's going to quote them. Ve'elihu chiko es Iyov b'devorim. And Elihu waited. He waited for Job with the words, Ki zekenim emo mimenu leyomim. Ki zekenim hemo, for elders are they, mimenu, than him, leyomim, when it comes to days. And we shall, as we go into our text, recall the words of the Bered Rav Safra, the son of Rav Safra, quoted from the Holy Zohar in Parashas Terumo, where he explains the why it is written here in our text, Le Yomim, and also further down, Le Yomim, and not Mi Yomim. Vayar Elihu ki ein ma'aneh befi shloishes ha'anoshim vayichar apo. Concluding the opening narrative of this section, Vayar Elihu, Elihu saw ki ein ma'aneh. Says there's no answer. He'd been waiting Job out with the previous discourses of Job, waiting till he ceased. He sees now, ein ma'aneh b'fi shloishes ha'anoshim. He says there's no more answer in the mouth of those three men. Vayichar apo, and his anger, his wrath burned in him. So now he launches into this very beautiful rhetorical section. Vaya'an Elihu ben Barachel habuzi vayomar so'ir ani leyomim ve'atem yeshishim על כן זוחלתי ואירו מחוות דאי אתכם. ויען אליהו בן ברachel הבוזי, and they answered now Elihu, the son of Barachel the Buzi, ויאמר, and he said, צועיר אני ליומim, young am I to days. As we saw in the Perush HaZohar, the explanation of the Zohar, I am young and therefore I defer myself to those of days, to the elders. Va'atem yeshishim, and you, addressing Job and the three companions, you are old. Al kein zohalti, therefore I've been crawling in terror. That is the allusion of the word zochalti. The zochel is one that creeps away in terror. Vo'iro, I feared mehavoth dei, from giving expression to my opinion, my knowledge, eschem, with you, before you. Omarti yomim yedaberu, v'roiv shonima yoidiu chochmo. Omarti, I said, as I listened you out, I said, Yomim yedaberu, let the days speak. V'roiv shonim, the abundance of years, yodiu chochmo, they shall make known wisdom. Ochein, but, ruach hi ve'enosh, v'nishmas Shaddai tevinem. But it's not days, it's not years. Verse 8, Ochein, but indeed, Ruach hi ve'enosh. Spirit is it, this wisdom for which I waited, this chokhmah at the end of the previous verse. It is spirit, it is Ruach. The Holy Spirit be'enosh comes down dwelling in man. V'nishmas Shaddai tevinem. It is the Nishmas Shaddai, the soul of Shaddai the Eternal, the soul given by Shaddai the Eternal God to Vinem, that is what shall give them understanding. So here in this verse we have the two sides of the tree of the Sfirot, the two main sides, the right-hand side and the left-hand side of wisdom and understanding. Chokhmah, which Eliphaz is saying is the ruach that comes down, that is the right-hand side of wisdom. Wisdom comes as a great matana, wisdom from a gift from heaven, that the gates of our consciousness are opened in one holistic view. Nishmas Shaddai Tevinem, here the left-hand side, the left column, the side of Bino, analytic understanding, which uses the attribute of Gevurah, of limitation, to define and delineate each thing in turn. So the Ruach coming down with the wisdom, that is drawn down from the central column of Tiferet. And Shaddai, that is the attribute of Yesod, which is the channel for the Tivuna wisdom, together with the Ruach Chochmah, the spirit of wisdom. And continues Eliphaz, therefore, in verse 9, Lo rabim yachkomu, uzekenim yovinu mishpat. Lo rabim yachkomu, not many shall become wise. Uzekenim yovinu mishpat, and the elders shall understand the true, just, center column conclusion, that is the truth of wisdom. In other words, Elihu is saying that it's not a matter of age, it's a matter of divine spirit. Even those who spend all their lives searching after wisdom and investigation, this is not only dependent upon one's efforts, but also on the spirit that will be sent down. And in this verse, the word lo at the beginning refers to both sides of the verse. The first side speaking about chokhmah, wisdom. The second part speaking about bina, understanding. Lo rabim yachkomu, not many shall become wise. Velo zakenim yavinu mishpat, nor shall the zakenim, the elders, understand. Mishpat is the center column, that is the line of truth coming down from Keter, Da'at, Tiferet. Lochein omarti shim'oli ahave da'i af'oni. Lochein, therefore, after all of this, listening out the other elders, Lochein omarti, I therefore said, Shim'oli, please hear me. Ahave de'i af oni. Ahave, I too shall express de'i, my understanding, af oni, me too. Again, apologizing in deference, verse 11, Hein ochalti ledivreichem, ozin ad tevuno seichem, ad tachkerun milin. Hein hochalti, indeed, hein hochalti, I waited ledivreichem for your words. Ozin ad tevuno seichem, I have been listening up to your understanding. I've been listening carefully to try to figure to where your understanding reaches. Ad tahkerun milin, until you will fathom out the words, you will search out the words, you will investigate this whole subject. Ve'odichem es boinon, ve'hinei ein le'iyov mochiach one amorov mikem. Ve'odichem es boinon, upon you or up to you, es boinon, I have carried out my tevunah, my process of figuring out your understanding. Ve'hinei ein le'iyov mochiach one, ein le'iyov mochiach, behold, ein le'iyov, there's not to Job a mochiach, a reprover that can bring a proof against him. One amorov, nor one that answers his words, mikem, from among you. And that is why now this young Elihu feels justified to enter the fray. Pentomeru, lest you say, Motzonu chochmo el yitfenu lo ish. Pentomeru, lest you say, Motzonu chochmo, we have found wisdom in what you have said already, addressing now the companions. El yitfenu lo ish. Let God push him aside. Lo ish, not a person. On verse 13, Rashi explains, don't say that through your silence you have found wisdom. That is to say, that by being silent and not arguing against Job and not aggravating him anymore, that is any kind of wisdom. Do not say that. And don't, Rashi says, Ki el yidfenu v'lo ish, on these words, God will push him aside, not a man. Rashi says that the intention is, you should not have diminished the glory of God in this way. In other words, by not finding an adequate answer to Job, merely by remaining silent so as not to further aggravate his situation, you've actually diminished the glory of God by not truly justifying God's ways. Now, the interpretation of this verse 13 by Metzudat David is, lest you think to say that you have found an intelligent and decisive answer, to say to him that it must be because he has a great sin that he's in this situation, since God has been those who are the one that is persecuting Job, and that he is pushing him aside and not a man like me. Elihu is saying, the Holy One, blessed be He, is not suspected of doing judgment without true justice. And it's as if Elihu is saying that in truth there is not wisdom in your words, because this is not the fitting answer to try to silence the ferment in Job's heart, because he in himself does know that he is not guilty of any great sin. And so by both Rashi's interpretation and by Metzudas David interpretation, Elihu is saying to the companions, your silence is not true wisdom. And he continues, look, so far I have not entered the fray. Verse 14, V'lo orach elai milin, uve'imreichem lo ashivenu. So far, says Elihu, verse 14, V'lo orach elai milin. V'lo orach, he has not arranged a lie to me, milin, his words. He has not set forth arguments that will touch me, because I'm not going to answer him with your arguments. Uve'imreichem lo ashivenu. Uve'imreichem, through the words that you have been saying, lo ashivenu, I shall not answer him. And now, talking about the three companions now in the third person in verse 15, Hatu lo anu od, hetiku mehem milim. Chatu, they've been broken in fear. They're out of their depth here. The Targum translates Chatu it baru. They've been broken. Lo anu ad, they've not answered anymore. He'etiku mehem milim. La'atik is from the root of to remove something, to turn it aside, and somebody has been turning aside their words from them. Rashi says the words have just turned aside from them. They have nothing more to say. V'hohalti ki lo yedaberu ki omdu lo anu od. V'hochalti, and I waited. Ki lo yedaberu, they do not speak. Ki omdu, they stand there, they've stood still without answering. Lo anu ad, they have not answered anymore. Verse 17, ha'aneh af ani chelki. Achave dei af oni. A'aneh af ani. A'aneh, I shall answer. Af ani, me too. Chelki, my share chelek, with the connotation also of the wisdom that I have to offer. Ahave dei, ahave, I should express dei, my understanding. Af oni, me too. Kimoleisi milim, hetzikasani ruach bitni. Kimoleisi milim, for I am filled with words. Elihu is literally exploding with the spirit that is filling him. Hetzikasni ruach bitni, the ruach bitni, the spirit that is in my beten, the belly, and this is the belly of bina, understanding, that the ruach is surging forth. Hetzikasni, from the the root of tzukah, which is as in mitzukah, under real dire pressure. It is this ruach is pressuring his whole insides, and now telling us with this most promising words that we come to in verse 19. Hine vitni kayayin lo yiposeach, ka'ovus hadoshim yibokeya. Hine vitni, behold, in my belly, this belly of the wisdom, kayayin, it's like the wine of wisdom, the wine of bina, lo yiposeach, that it's not yet been opened. It's going to go pop like a bottle of champagne, this wine that is surging to burst out. Oivois chadoshim, like the oivois, like the flagons, the new flagons, yibokea, that the wine will burst forth from them in its fermenting and bubbling forth of this wisdom. Adabro vayirvach li, eftach sefosai va'aneh. Adabro, I must speak. Vayirvach li, then I will have the revacha, the wideness. Eftach sefosai, I shall open my lips. Ve'aneh, I shall answer. Al no esof neish, ve'el odom lo achaneh. Al no eso, let me not lift up pnei ish, let me not lift up the face of a man, that is to say, not to show such deference to a person that Elihu will not say the truth in front of him out of fear of offending him. He will not show respect to anybody in what he says. Ve'el odom, to any person, lo achaneh, I shall not use any kinui, I shall not change my language in order to give flattery to some person. He's promising us he's going to say it straight as it is. And verse 22, Ki lo yodati achaneh, Kima'at yiso'eni oseni. Verse 22, Ki lo yodati achaneh, I simply do not know that I should ever commit this sin of showing flattery and hypocrisy to a person, changing what I think in order to satisfy them. I don't know that method of speaking with kinuyim, of turning it around with fancy phrases. Kima'at yiso'eni oseni, literally, kima'at, almost, yiso'eni, shall lift me up, oseni, he that makes me, my maker. That is to say, that God will lift me up and take me out of this world where if I were ever to do this, that God would take him out of the world. He is not in any way going to show any kind of dishonesty. So with that, we come to the end of chapter 32 of Job, which is Elihu's introduction to the discourses that will be following in the coming chapters. And with that, my friends, we conclude this study of the Nacht today, and looking forward to launching into Elihu's profound discourses in our coming sessions. I'll be back, God willing, in just a few minutes with our new chapter, chapter 17 of Masachet Shabbat.
Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, b'mitzvahs Shabbos. B'mitzvahs Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, b'mitzvahs Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, Shabbos. Na 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 moy oy oy. Emi yitzvah vavas Shabbos. Oy vay, oy, b'mi yitzvah Shabbos. Oy vay, Shabbos. Oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, oy vay, Shabbos. B'mi yitzvah vavas Shabbos. Oy vay, oy, 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 oy. Na 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 na, oy, 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 oy. Kahi yeyel yachlitzo. nishmas, 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 kol chai, nishmas, kol chai, v'gam nal yizrach. Yoy Elai, v'gam nal yizrach, echoy v'simchu, echoy v'simchu, ki yikevaru tzavah.
Shalom again, my dear friends. Shalom, and back now to the next session in our studies today, the study of our holy Mishnah, coming today now to Tractate Shabbat, chapter 17, the new chapter. Again, to remind you that we will, God willing, have classes on Sunday and Monday of next week, but not on any of the other days because of the coming festival of Shavuot, next Tuesday night, Wednesday and Thursday, 30th of May, 31st and 1st of June. And with that, my dear friends, let us now turn to our studies today of the Holy Mishnah. Shalom, today, the 29th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 25th of May of the year 2017. We turn now to chapter 17 of Tractate Shabbat. There are people who each Shabbat recite the entire 24 chapters of the Tractate of Shabbat in the course of the day. They have the custom of reciting 8 chapters, the first 8 chapters of Masachet Shabbat, either before or in the course of the evening meal of Shabbat. Then chapters 9 through to the end of 16 in the morning, either before or during the Shabbat morning meal. And then chapters 17 through to the end, chapter 24, either before or during the third meal of the Shabbat. And when they get to chapter 17, it's already Shabbat afternoon. You know that you have your sights already towards the completion of the Masechta, the completion of the tractate. So with that, we come now not only into the last third of Tractate Shabbat in terms of the number of chapters, but actually we've already gone over the 2/3 mark in the amount of material, and some of the later chapters are shorter and have shorter commentaries than the earlier chapters. And in today's chapter of 17, we come into a subject that was touched very briefly in the second chapter of Shabbat, Bameh Madlikin, dealing with the wicks and the oils of the Shabbat candles, and having the Mishnah there relating to the permissibility of carrying the burning lamp while the candles are alight, or even after the candles have gone out, whether you can carry the candlestick on the Shabbat. And that was our first reference to the area known in the laws of Shabbat as the area of muktzeh. The word muktzeh means something that has been put aside. When they used to cultivate figs and dry the figs for a ever-ready sweet candy during the winter months, the dried sweet figs. When the figs are picked from the tree, in order to be dried, they have to be put out in the sun. And while they're actually developing their sugars, they are very inedible. And for the whole period that the figs, as they're being harvested during the summer, are being prepared for being dried in the sun and prepared for storage, they are, in the language of the Mishnah and the Halacha, muktzeh. The word muktzeh has this connotation of something that is put out of mind because there's nothing to do with these figs until they will be ready processed in a matter of weeks, however long it will take. And the term muktzeh is used on the Shabbat for a whole class of items for which we have no direct use on the Shabbat, a whole class of items that our sages decreed not to handle them and not to move them around on the Shabbat for reasons that we shall hear presently. And our chapter, together with later chapters, will be dealing with this very extensive subject. We will still be talking about some of the remaining 39 labors of the Shabbat that have not been dealt with. But among the subjects in the later part of the tractate are subjects relating to conduct that is not consistent with the sanctity of Shabbat, be it on the level of things we talk about and things we engage ourselves in on the Shabbat. And here, the subject of things that we handle and touch on Shabbat or do not. We are certainly able to handle the vessels and utensils that we need for Shabbat. Obviously, our clothes that we wish to wear, which are called kalim, and all of the plates and bowls and cutlery that we use at our Shabbat meals, these are kalim, utensils that are by no means muktzeh. They are not set aside from use on the Shabbat. The essential concept of muktzeh is that, as we have already learned, we prepare things for the Shabbat, and something that is not ready and prepared for use on the Shabbat for some reason or another, be it, for example, a professional tool that can only be used for doing something that is forbidden to do on the Shabbat as a forbidden labor. This is something that is not ready for use on the Shabbat in most cases. Same would apply to a rock or a clod of earth, that unless you designate it for some specific purpose before the Shabbat, the rock or the clod of earth, you cannot pick it up on the Shabbat and use the rock as your door stopper. If you had designated as such before the Shabbat, that is something that was prepared for the Shabbat, but to go out into the yard and bring in a rock or a block of discarded a block of wood to use it for your door stopper, you may not do on the Shabbat because that item was not designated for use on the Shabbat. A number of other items and other categories of items on which our sages put the category of muktzeh. It's a category that applies both on the Shabbat and also with certain variations on the festivals, but our focus here mainly is on the Shabbat. And as an introduction to this section, it is very worthy to read the introduction to the first Mishnah of chapter 17 as brought in the edition of Rabbi Pinchas Kahati, the late Rabbi Pinchas Kahati, Zichron Livrocho, who wrote his very beautiful Hebrew commentary on the Mishnah, a banker who was a great Talmid Chacham, an outstanding Talmid Chacham who wrote commentary on the whole of the 6 orders, the Mishnah, all of the 63 tractates, and this commentary has been, which is a synthesis of the major classical commentaries and of the discussion in the Gemara at greater length than the commentary of Rabbi Ovadia Bar Turnura, which we've been mostly using. His commentary is an invaluable resource, as is specifically here his introduction to the first Mishnah of chapter 17 of Shabbos. We already mentioned in the introduction to the tractate, says Rav Kahati, that things that are not ready from before Shabbat, from the eve of Shabbos, to use on the Shabbat for the sake of things that are permitted, these objects that were not ready from before Shabbat, our sages forbade moving them around on the Shabbat. You can actually, according to the halacha, touch such a thing if it's not going to move when you touch it. A tree or a bush that's going to move if you touch it, you may not even touch it, but the candlesticks on Shabbat, if you simply touch them, although one should not, if they're not going to move, that is not what is forbidden so much as a tiltul, carrying around of these items. Our sages decreed not to carry them around, and these are called collectively isurei muktzeh. Isurei, the forbidden items under the category of muktzeh, that which is set aside from our Shabbos use. And now Kahati quotes the full section from the laws of Shabbat of the Mishneh Torah of Rambam, by Moshe ben Maimonides, the outstanding codifier of Torah law, who says the following section in his introduction to the laws of Muktzeh on Shabbat, explaining why. He says, our sages forbade carrying around certain things on the Shabbat the way one would do on a weekday. And why did they touch this prohibition? Why did they feel it necessary to impose such a restriction? They said, we find in the prophet Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 13, the prophet speaks about the guarding of the Shabbat by refraining from one's normal ways of journeying and walking far distances. The prophet enjoins us not to engage in our business activities, our personal worldly strivings, even if they do not involve malacha, a strict labor. Our sages enjoined us not even to speak about our mundane business affairs on the Shabbat. That's all derived from the verse in Isaiah chapter 58, verse 13, quoted here by Rambam. And even to speak about business affairs one should not do. So our sages saw a kal v'chomer here. If you should not speak about them, which is pretty easy to speak, involving no particular effort, and even that is forbidden on the Shabbat. One has to refrain from talking about our business affairs on the Shabbat. Then the more stringent case of actually carrying things about, how much more so should we not be carrying around on the Shabbat all kinds of items that we would normally be carrying around and moving on the weekday? So that with this restriction in place, then the Shabbat will not be like a weekday in one's eyes, which could lead one to start lifting up all kinds of utensils and tools from one corner to another, from one house to another in the courtyard. One might start sort of putting aside stones for use and other items, because the person on Shabbat is their idol in his house, and he's looking for something to get occupied with, and it will turn out that he has not really had the Shabbat rest. And the whole reason for the Shabbat that the Torah states, Lema'an Yom Nuach, in order the person should have rest, menucha, this will have been obliterated through such conduct. So that was one reason why they ruled out of bounds all manner of kelim that are not used on the Shabbat and other substances. Another reason brought by the Rambam here in his introduction to the laws of Muktzeh in the Mishnah Torah in chapter 24 and chapters 25 of the laws of Shabbat in Mishnah Torah, continues the Rambam to say, if a person were busy carrying around his tools and his utensils and examining them, where these are tools specifically whose use on the Shabbat is for a labor that is forbidden on the Shabbat, it could well be that the person would actually absent-mindedly on the Shabbat come to perform the forbidden labor. If he was permitted to handle his hammer, he might come to drive a nail into the wall, which is prohibited under the prohibition of building on the Shabbat. He's adding to a building even by driving a pin into the wall with his hammer, so he might come to do that. And another reason that Rambam brings here is that some of the people are not actually craftsmen or workers. They're actually fairly idle all of their days. For example, tourists and those idlers and loafers who sit on street corners, all their days they're actually resting from constructive labor. And if it were permitted for them to go around and to speak and carry around items just as they would do on other days of the week, so there will be no difference for them between the Shabbat and any other day. They have no set work, and if they're able to speak and handle everything, they have no recognizable Shabbat. And that is why the Shevita, the Shabbos rest from these things, has been decreed by the sages in order to make everybody equal on the Shabbat. And it was for these reasons that the sages touched on the prohibition of carrying around certain items. This is a rabbinic prohibition that goes back to the earliest of times, and they said a person should not on the Shabbat carry around anything except the utensils that he actually needs for the Shabbat, as will be explained. And this category of kelim, of utensils, are called those kelim whose malacha is permitted. The use to which they are put is a permitted use, like using a knife to cut up the food on your plate, using a fork to put the food into your mouth, using a soup bowl, a cup. All of these are permitted because you need them. This is the utensil, explains Rambam, that is permitted to do on the Shabbat the thing that it is used for on weekday. For example, a cup to drink from, a plate to eat with, a knife to cut the meat and the bread, and likewise a little hammer to use as a nut cracker. It's permitted to crack your nuts on the Shabbat, the walnuts, the Brazil nuts, the almonds, their shells, to crack these with a little nut hammer. Now there is a second category of keli, of utensil or tool, whose intended labor is prohibited. This would be the utensil that it will be forbidden to perform on the Shabbat, that the utensil is actually specifically made for. Rambam here gives us his examples: the machteshes, that is a grinder to grind up spices, peppercorns and cinnamon and so on. Rechaim would be a mill used to grind up flour. These labors are forbidden on the Shabbat. The labor of grinding is forbidden, and therefore the instruments used specifically for grinding, like a mill or a grinder, would be forbidden to. These labors are forbidden to do on Shabbat. And any so these come under the category of kli shemalachto leisur, a utensil whose work is for isur, for something that is forbidden to do on the Shabbat. Now, giving us the basic laws, Rambam tells us every utensil that is used for something permitted on the Shabbat, like eating utensils, whether it's of wood or of earthenware or of stone or metal, it is permitted to move it around on the Shabbat. It's permitted to do this whether you're doing this for the purpose of the actual utensil itself. Suppose you'd left some utensils out in the sun, where if they're wooden plates or bowls, they might get spoiled by being in the sun, or spoiled by being in the rain. So even if you move that utensil not because you want to use the bowl to put food in it for yourself, but merely to protect the utensil itself, even that is permitted on the Shabbat. Likewise, if the utensil whose normal purpose is for something permitted on Shabbat, if it was in a place that you wanted to use that place, somebody left the bowl on a chair and you want to sit on the chair, it is permitted to use to move the utensil in question, even though you're not going to use it for its specific purpose, and that purpose is still permitted on the Shabbat. Even there, you may move the item if you need to use the space it occupies, and likewise, you can use the utensil for its third purpose, legufo, for what it's actually made for. You may certainly handle the utensil for the purpose it's made for. For example, a plate, you want to eat off it. So all that applies to the utensils whose malacha is leheter, those that their purpose for which they're made is perfectly permissible on the Shabbat. You may move them if it's for the sake of the utensil itself, to protect it from the sun or the rain or from thieves. You may move it if you want it to use its place, and you may certainly move it if you want to use it for its own purpose. That is not the case in the second category of utensils which are made for labors that are forbidden on the Shabbat. Kli shemalachto le'isur, a utensil whose malacha, its labor, is le'isur, for forbidden for all those vessels, no matter whether it is of wood or of earthenware or of stone or of metal. It is permitted to move it on the Shabbat if you're going to use it for a permitted purpose, as we shall see in our chapter in the Mishnah. If you want to take a big axe because you need it to chop up your cake of dried figs, you're allowed to do that on the Shabbat, even though the axe would normally be used for chopping down a tree, which is forbidden. But where it can be adapted for a use that is permitted on the Shabbat, if you needed to take a club to break your nut open because you don't have a nut cracker available, that is permitted. You may also move the utensil whose labor is normally forbidden on the Shabbat if it is on a place that you need to use. If you need the place and the object was in that place and you have to move it, that is permitted. However, the tool whose main purpose is something that is forbidden on Shabbat, it is not permitted to move it if the intention is to move it for its own sake. To move such an instrument, your precious drill or some other object, to move it out of the rain or to save it from getting stolen, that is not permitted on the Shabbat in the case of utensils whose main purpose is forbidden on the Shabbat. And the same applies to items like stones that have not been designated for any purpose from before the Shabbat. The same applies to money. Money has no use on the Shabbat, since we are forbidden to engage in commercial activities on the Shabbat, as will be discussed later in our tractate. And therefore money has no purpose, and it comes into the category of muktzeh. The same applies to if a person had, as Rambam continues in this introduction to the laws of muktzah, he had building materials like beams in his yard or bamboo all ready for use. It would be forbidden to move them. That is Rambam's introduction to the laws of muktzah, which are the subject of our present chapter, chapter 17 of our Mishnah Tractate Shabbat. With that, let us launch into the Hebrew text of our Mishnah now. It's going to start by talking about the rather larger kind of utensils. The first Mishnah of chapter 17, Kol hakelim nitolin b'shabos, all of the kelim, the regular vessels and utensils, nitolin b'shabos, they may be taken up and moved on the Shabbat. V'dal soisehen imohen, and their doors with them. If you had a cabinet that had a door, that is permitted to pick up the door, even if the door had come off the cabinet either on the Shabbat or before the Shabbat. It is still permitted to carry the door, the cover of the cabinet on the Shabbat, which would not be the case if the door of a house had come off. In the case of the kelim, dal soisen imohen, you may carry their doors with them, afal pishen isporku, even though they have been separated, they've come apart. Shabbos, you may carry them on the Shabbat. I have interpreted these words according to the interpretation of the Talmud, it's permitted to carry these doors with them, even though they were coming apart from before the Shabbat. It is permitted to pick them up and carry them on the Shabbat. She'enon doimin ledalosis habayis, for they are not to be compared with the doors of a house. Lefi she'enon min hamuchon, because they, the latter, the doors of the house, are not min amuchon. They are not from that which is prepared from before the Shabbat. The doors of the house are supposed to be attached to the tzirim above and below, what we would call the hinges, that the door is stuck into the binyan, the building of the house. And the door of a house is intended to be attached because it comes to be closed to protect unwanted outsiders, to give privacy, and for all of the other reasons why a person has a door fixed to his house. Now, if the door had come off from before the Shabbat, the door becomes muktzah. You cannot carry it around. This is a fairly detailed discussion in the halachot, whether there are movable covers to openings in houses, windows. We shall come to more of that later on. But for now, let's go with the basic principle here that is being involved. Our Mishnah explaining to us that the difference between the door of the cupboard, which is a kli, a vessel, and the door of the house, which is a binyan, the difference is because the doors of the house building Einon min amuchon, they are not ready. Even if they came off on the Shabbat, they may not be carried around, because such doors are not made to be carried around. With a utensil like a chest or a cupboard, if the door came off it, the door may be carried around because it's still usable for its first use. With that, we now move to our second Mishnah, which talks about the taking of utensils whose normal weekday use is forbidden on the Shabbat. And here our Mishnah tells us that it is permitted to take up these utensils for a use on the Shabbat, which is permitted. Even where you cannot use it for its original purpose, noitel odam kurnos. Person could take a kurnos mallet, hammer, lefatzea boy es ha'egoizim, to break open the nuts. The kurdom, one could take the kurdom axe, lachtoch es hadvelo, to cut the develo, cake of dried figs, which are all stuck together very strongly, and can only be broken apart with such an axe. Megiro ligror bo es hagevino. One could take a serrated knife called a megiro, has the edge of a saw, in order to use it to grate the cheese. There are limitations in grating and grinding on the Shabbat. One may not grind up things that come into the category of vegetables and spices and fruits. They come under the prohibition of techina, of grinding on the Shabbat. But here our Mishnah is permitting a loose kind of grating of the cheese. Those food substances over which when we're eating them we bless shehakol, nihye b'devoro, that all comes about through his word, like eggs or cheese or meat, they may be grated loosely on the Shabbat, as here in our Mishnah telling us that with a serrated knife, which would normally be used actually as a saw, the Hebrew word megiro is more of a saw than a kitchen implement. With a megiro, one could cut the cheese, and likewise, the Mishnah concludes, magrefo ligrof bo es ha grogros. The magrefo kind of trowel could be used to scrape out with it the grogros, these are the dried figs, which here have been stored in a barrel as opposed to in the devel or cake of dried figs. So again, a trowel that would normally be used in the vegetable garden here may be used for this purpose that is permitted on the Shabbat, to get your dried figs out of the container. And these are examples of the use, the permissibility of picking up an instrument whose normal use is forbidden on the Shabbat, where you need to use it on the Shabbat for something that is intrinsically permitted on the Shabbat. And our Mishnah continues, Es hakush v'es hakirkor lischov bo. The kush and the kirkor are also instruments. The kush itself is an instrument used by those spinning threads, and it's an instrument around which the thread is being spun and wound around it, and it has a sharp end. And the karkar also is the shaft used by the weaver. And because of their sharp ends, although the normal work of spinning and weaving are strictly forbidden on Shabbat as being among the 39 labors, to use these instruments with their sharp end to spear a fruit to put in your mouth, that is permitted. So I have actually left out a phrase in our Mishnah. Let's go back then to the earlier part of the Mishnah. I missed out two of the agricultural instruments that may be used on the Shabbat for permitted purposes after the magrefo, the trowel for ligrof es ha-grogros, to rake out the grogros figs, es orachas ve'es amazleg. The rachas would be a winnowing implement, that is for picking up some agricultural produce like wheat stalks or stalks of kitniot, of legumes, beans and the like, where they've already undergone the threshing process, and the next agricultural process is lifting them up and in the wind, letting the wind blow away the chaff and let the seeds, the kernels, drop for collection. The rachas, this rachas winnowing instrument, as a mazleg, the mazleg would be a long pitchfork, both of which are agricultural instruments. Loseis olov lakoten, to use them to give something to a child, if you needed to extend out to the child these items so he could take it, that would be a permitted use of these agricultural instruments. Es hakush v'es hakarka, we spoke about the kush, the spindle or the shaft of the spinner, and the karkor, that would be the weaver's shaft. Lischov boy, to spear a fruit with it. Machat shel yod, the needle, a hand needle, that is to say a sewer's needle, which would normally on a weekday be used for the forbidden labor of tefirah, toifer, of sewing. It would be permitted to take it on the Shabbat, to move it, litol bo es hakotz, to take with it a kotz, a splinter that is penetrated under the person's skin. It is permitted to use a needle for that purpose. The act of removing the splinter is not forbidden on the Shabbat. V'shel sakoim, likewise the needle of the sakoim, those are the craftsmen that make the coarser fabrics of sacks and put them together, sew them together. Liftoach boy es hadeles, if you needed to use the instrument of the weavers to open up the door of your house to pick the lock, that would, in a case of need, that would be permitted. So all of these activities of taking out the splinter with the needle and picking the lock with the larger needle are permitted. With that, we come to the third Mishnah, which is related to the laws we are dealing with of muktzeh, but it's going to speak about a particular instrument that is used in the manufacture of olive oil. Olives, when they're picked from the tree immediately, are not yet ready to be squeezed. The olives, after they've been picked off the tree and collected, they are placed in a large vessel which is called a ma'atan, in which all the olives are sitting one on top of the other in a huge pile. And as the fermentation and the development of the oils in the olives proceeds, there's quite a lot of chemical activity going on in this ma'atan instrument. And the cultivator of the olives wants to know at what point are the olives going to be ready for being transferred into the olive press, where heavy beams will be placed upon them, crushing the olives and squeezing the oil out of them. So all the while the olives are in the ma'atan, they are being left to ferment until they will be ready to extract the greatest amount of oil from them. And in order to check this, the processor of the olives used a kaneh, which is a kind of a staff, a stalk of some kind of reed, like a bamboo stalk. And the use of this would be because of what is called the kesher, the knot at the top of the part of the reed that the person is using. This kesher, the so-called knot, is actually a little collector where when the person pushes the rod down into the olives, through them into the matan, he pushes it down, some of the, when he pulls it up again, residues of olive oil will be left on the end of the kaneh, and that makes this kaneh, this reed, actually a collecting item and makes a difference in the laws of purity and impurity. Our Mishnah is leading up to the fact that if you wanted to use this kaneh, this instrument, on the Shabbat for some permitted purpose, of course you can't be checking the processing of your olives, but if you needed the rod for some other purpose, since it is a keli as such, it may be taken on the Shabbat. But our Mishnah deals with the question of what is the halachic status of this rod when it comes to the laws of purity and impurity. Koneh shel zeisim im yesh kesher b'roishoi. Koneh shel zeisim, the rod used for the olives. Im yesh kesher b'rosho. If it has this kesher, this knot at its head, makabil tum'o. It is susceptible to receiving ritual impurity. That is to say that because it is a wooden implement, and it has in this case the kesher, which is called a kli kibul, it is a receiving area for the oil to collect. Any wooden instrument that has the ability to receive a liquid or the like is susceptible to receive tum'ah, as opposed to a wooden implement that is all straight without any place to collect anything in it. So, for example, a regular a wooden item that was flat without any concavity would not be susceptible to receiving impurity, as our Mishnah goes on to say, "Im lav," if the koneh shel zeisim, if the stick of the olive manufacturers did not have a kli kibul, ein makabel tumah, it does not, under the laws of purity and impurity, receive ritual impurity. And since we're talking about the Kona Shel Zeisim, we've actually introduced it because of the last part of the Mishnah. Ben kach or ben kach, either way, whether it does or does not have the kesher, the knot, nitol b'Shabbos, it is permitted to be taken on the Shabbat for a permitted purpose on the Shabbat. And with that, we conclude the third Mishnah of our chapter 17. And with that, my dear friends, we conclude our studies for today. And with the help of God, I'll be back here on Sunday with more in our beautiful book of Job and our Mishnah. With that, I wish you Shabbat Shalom Vorach, a good Shabbos, and Chodesh Tom Vorach tonight, the new month of Sivan, the night of the receiving of our holy Torah. May you have a blessed month and go from strength to strength in receiving, studying, teaching, guarding, and fulfilling the holy Torah. Shalom from Jerusalem.
Simchu